Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars drift past the view screen. The ship was quiet tonight, just the soft hum of the engines and the occasional beep from the control panels. He liked these peaceful moments. They reminded him why he joined the space program in the first place. Out here among the stars, everything felt possible. The Horizon's Edge was not the biggest ship in Earth's fleet, but it was fast and reliable. Jake had been commanding her for 3 years now, exploring the outer edges of human space. His crew of 45 people had become like family. They trusted each other with their lives every single day. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Sophie Bennett from her station. She was the tactical officer, a sharp woman with quick reflexes and an even quicker mind. Her fingers moved across her console, bringing up data on the main screen. Jake leaned forward. "What kind of strange?" "A signal. It's not from any of our colonies. Not from any known frequency either." Sophie adjusted her headset, listening carefully. Her face changed from curious to concerned. "Sir, I think it's a distress call." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life. What came through was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was not words, not exactly. It was more like music mixed with static, high-pitched tones that seemed to carry emotion more than meaning. But even without understanding the language, Jake could hear the fear in it, the desperation. "Get Amy up here right now," he said. Dr. Amy Sullivan arrived on the bridge within minutes, still pulling on her uniform jacket. She was their linguist, someone who had learned 15 Earth languages before she turned 20. Now she studied alien communications, though humanity had not met many other species yet. "Play it again," Amy said, putting on a headset and closing her eyes to concentrate. The signal played 3 more times. Amy's expression grew darker with each repetition. She pulled up her computer and started working, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Charts and graphs filled her screen, analyzing the sound waves and patterns. "This is definitely alien," she confirmed. "And it's definitely a distress signal. The pattern repeats every 47 seconds. That's intentional. They want someone to find it. Can you translate it?" Jake asked. "Give me an hour. Maybe 2. Amy bit her lip, still working. "But Captain, even without translation, I can tell you one thing. Whoever sent this is terrified." Jake felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He had been in dangerous situations before. He had seen people afraid. But the idea that somewhere out there, an entire alien species was crying for help, that thought shook him. "Marcus," he called to his chief engineer through the comm system. "I need you to trace that signal. Find out where it's coming from." Marcus Hayes was down in the engine room, probably covered in grease and perfectly happy about it. The man loved machines more than people sometimes, but he was the best engineer Jake had ever worked with. "Already on it, Captain," Marcus replied. "Signal is coming from about 15 light-years away. The Kepler Expanse region, near the edge of explored space. 15 light-years. That was far, but not impossible. The Horizon's Edge could make that jump in about a week with their faster-than-light drive." Jake stood up and walked to the view screen, staring out at the stars. His orders were clear. Map the outer regions. Avoid contact with unknown species unless absolutely necessary. Return to Earth in 6 months with their findings. Getting involved in alien problems was not part of the mission, but he kept hearing that sound. That cry for help. "Sophie, what's our weapon status?" he asked quietly. "Full load, sir. Railguns are charged. Missiles are ready. Shields are at 100%. She paused. "Are we expecting trouble?" "I don't know yet." Jake turned back to his crew. "But I want us ready for anything." 2 hours later, Amy called him to her lab. She looked exhausted, but there was fire in her eyes. She had cracked the code. "It's from a species called the Varens," she explained, showing him her translations. "They're a peaceful people. No military, no weapons. They've never fought a war in their entire history." "Never?" Jake could hardly believe that. Every species on Earth had fought wars. It was part of being alive, part of survival. "Never," Amy confirmed. "Their world is apparently very gentle. No predators. No natural disasters. They evolved without needing violence." She pulled up more data. "But now they're under attack. By something called the Krell Dominion. The Krell are conquering their worlds, killing their people. The Varens have no way to fight back." She played the translated message. A synthesized voice spoke through her computer, but even the artificial tone could not hide the emotion behind the words. "This is the Varen Commonwealth. We are dying. Our planets burn. Our people fall. We have no weapons. We have no warriors. We beg anyone who can hear this message. Please help us. Please, we do not want to die. The lab was silent for a long moment. Jake felt something twist in his chest. He thought about Earth, about all the wars and struggles humanity had faced. They had almost destroyed themselves a dozen times. But they had also learned something important. They had learned to stand together when it mattered most. How many of them are there? Jake asked. Based on the data in the signal, about 8 billion Varens across 5 planets. Amy met his eyes. The Krell have already destroyed one planet completely. 3 billion dead in a single day. Jake's hands clenched into fists. 3 billion lives gone, just like that. Send this to Earth immediately, he ordered. Mark it Priority 1. Send it directly to Admiral Cole at Fleet Command. Sir, that will take 3 days to reach Earth, another 3 for them to respond. Sophie had followed him to the lab. What do we do in the meantime? Jake knew what he should do. Wait for orders, stay safe, follow protocol. That was the smart choice, the safe choice. But when he closed his eyes, he saw his own family back on Earth. He imagined them crying out for help while the universe ignored them. Plot a course for Varen space, he said firmly. Best possible speed. Captain, we don't have authorization, Sophie reminded him gently. We could be starting an interstellar incident. Then I'll take full responsibility. Jake looked at both women. I won't sit here for a week while billions of people die. We're going. Anyone who disagrees can log an official protest and I'll note it in my report. Nobody protested. The Horizon's Edge changed course, turning toward the Kepler expanse. Down in the engine room, Marcus pushed the faster-than-light drive to its limits. The ship jumped into hyperspace, reality bending around them as they raced toward the unknown. Jake stood on the bridge, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace flow past. He thought about Admiral Patricia Cole back on Earth. She was a tough woman, a veteran of Earth's worst wars. She had seen things that would break most people. But she had also taught Jake something important during his training. We don't leave people behind, she had said. That's not who we are. That's not who we'll ever be. Jake hoped she would remember those words when she received his message. He hoped Earth would send help. But even if they did not, even if he was alone out here, he could not turn away. The Varens had sent out a cry for help. Someone had to answer. The ship raced through the darkness, carrying 45 humans toward a war they knew nothing about. But Jake felt no fear. Only determination. If the Varens needed warriors, humanity would provide them. If they needed protectors, humans would stand guard. And if the Krell wanted a fight, they were about to learn something important. Earth was not a gentle world. It had shaped humanity into survivors, into fighters, into people who protected the weak and stood against the darkness. The Krell had never faced Deathworlders before. They were about to learn. The Horizon's Edge dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Varen territory. What Jake saw on the view screen made his blood run cold. 3 planets hung in space ahead of them, and 2 were burning. Massive fires spread across entire continents. The atmosphere of one planet glowed orange from the heat. Cities that must have taken centuries to build were being reduced to ash. My God, Sophie whispered from her station. Her face had gone pale. How many people are down there? Scanning now, said Amy, her voice shaking. I'm detecting life signs, but they're fading fast. Millions of them just going dark. Jake gripped his command chair hard enough that his knuckles turned white. Around the planets he could see ships. Not human ships. These were angular and massive, covered in sharp edges and dark metal. They looked like weapons themselves. The Krell fleet. Count those ships, Jake ordered, forcing his voice to stay steady. Sophie worked quickly. I see 37 warships. Various sizes. The biggest ones are at least 3 times our size. She looked up at him. Captain, we're just one ship. I know. Jake studied the enemy fleet. They were positioned around the planets like predators circling wounded prey. Their weapons fired down at the surface in bright lances of energy. Each shot probably killed thousands. But we're here now. We have to do something. Marcus came running onto the bridge, still wiping engine grease from his hands. Captain, I've been monitoring their communications. The translator is rough, but I'm getting the basic idea. They're not just attacking, they're exterminating. This is genocide. The word hung in the air like poison. Genocide. The systematic destruction of an entire species. Humanity had done it to itself more than once in its dark history. Jake had studied those events in school. He had sworn, like every officer in Earth's fleet, that he would never let it happen again if he had the power to stop it. "Sophie, charge all weapons," he said quietly. "Target the nearest Krell ship." "Sir, we should wait for backup," Sophie said, but her fingers were already moving across her controls. She knew him well enough to know he had made up his mind. "We don't have time to wait. Load the railguns, prepare nuclear missiles, and Sophie, turn off the safeties." Everyone on the bridge turned to look at him. Turning off the safeties meant the weapons would fire at full power with no limits. It was dangerous. It could even damage their own ship. But it would hit harder than anything the Krell had probably ever seen. "You heard the captain?" Sophie said to her weapons crew. "Battle stations. This is not a drill." Alarms rang through the ship. Red lights flashed in every corridor. The crew of the Horizon's Edge rushed to their positions. They were explorers, not warriors. But every human trained for combat. It was part of their nature, learned from a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years. Jake opened a channel to the entire ship. "This is the captain. We're outnumbered and outgunned. The smart thing would be to run. But down on those planets are billions of innocent people who are dying while we watch. I won't do that. I can't do that. If anyone wants to object, speak now. Silence." Then Marcus spoke from engineering. "Just point us at them, Captain." "Weapons are ready when you are," added Sophie. Jake felt pride swell in his chest. This was humanity. This was what made them special. Not their weapons or their ships, but their willingness to stand up when it mattered most. "Take us in," he ordered. "Full speed. Target that destroyer on the left. Hit them before they know we're here." The Horizon's Edge surged forward. The small human ship accelerated toward the Krell fleet like a bullet. The enemy did not notice them at first. They were too busy destroying the planet below. That was their first mistake. "Firing railguns," Sophie announced. The ship shuddered as the railguns launched. Tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons, shot out at incredible speeds. They crossed the distance in seconds. The Krell destroyer never saw them coming. The tungsten rods hit its hull and punched straight through. The kinetic energy was so powerful that the metal turned to plasma on impact. The destroyer exploded in a ball of fire and debris. "Target destroyed," Sophie reported, her voice filled with shock. "One shot. It only took one shot." The Krell fleet finally noticed them. Jake watched as the massive warships began to turn. He could almost feel their surprise. Who was this tiny ship that dared to attack them? "They're hailing us," Amy said. "Should I put them through?" "Do it." The view screen changed. A Krell commander appeared. He was huge, almost 7 feet tall, with gray skin and eyes like black stones. He wore armor covered in sharp spikes and carried himself like someone who had never lost a battle. "Unknown vessel," the Krell said in a harsh, grinding voice. The translator made his words understandable but no less threatening. "You have made a fatal error. Identify yourself before we destroy you." Jake stood up from his chair. He straightened his uniform and looked directly at the Krell commander. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. That destroyer was firing on civilians. You're committing genocide. Stand down immediately or we will destroy every ship in your fleet." The Krell commander stared at him for a moment. Then he started laughing. It was a terrible sound, full of cruelty and confidence. "Earth? We have never heard of Earth. You are one small ship threatening our entire fleet. You must be insane." "Maybe," Jake agreed. "But we're also really angry. Last chance. Leave these people alone." The Krell stopped laughing. His black eyes narrowed. "You will die first. Then we will find your Earth and burn it. Kill them." The transmission cut off. Immediately, 6 Krell warships turned toward the Horizon's Edge. Their weapons began to glow as they charged. "Here they come," Sophie said. "Shields up. Evasive pattern Delta." The Horizon's Edge twisted and dove as enemy fire lit up the space around them. Beams of energy sliced past, missing them by meters. Jake held onto his chair as the ship spun and rolled. Marcus was an artist with the engines, making their small ship dance like nothing the Krell had ever seen. "Return fire," Jake commanded. "Everything we have," Sophie unleashed hell. Railguns fired again and again, each shot hitting with devastating force. Missiles streaked out, their nuclear warheads bright against the darkness. The Krell ships had shields, but they were designed to stop energy weapons. They were not ready for solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. 2 more Krell ships exploded. A third lost its engines and began to drift. The others started to spread out, trying to surround the human ship. "They're adapting," Sophie warned, "trying to box us in." Then we stop dodging and start ramming, Jake said. He knew it was crazy, but crazy was all they had. Marcus, all power to forward shields. Are you serious? Marcus shouted from engineering. Do it. The Horizon's Edge stopped its evasive maneuvers and flew straight at the nearest Krell cruiser. The enemy ship fired everything it had. Energy beams hammered into the human shields. The lights on the bridge flickered. Consoles sparked. But the shields held just long enough. At the last second, Jake gave the order. Fire! Every weapon on the ship fired at point-blank range. The railguns punched through the Krell hull like it was cardboard. Nuclear missiles detonated inside the enemy ship. The cruiser came apart in a massive explosion that rocked the Horizon's Edge and sent it spinning. Alarms screamed. Half the bridge panels were dark. Amy was holding her head where she had hit it on her console. But they were alive. Damage report, Jake called out. Shields are down, Marcus reported. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Sealing them now. One railgun is offline. But we're still flying. Jake looked at the view screen. 4 Krell ships destroyed. The rest of the fleet was pulling back, regrouping. They had not expected this. They had not expected humans. Then Sophie gasped. Captain, look, new contacts were appearing on the scanner. Lots of them. Jake's heart sank. Krell reinforcements. They were finished. But then Amy started laughing through her tears. Captain, those aren't Krell ships. Those are ours. It's the Third Fleet. Earth sent the cavalry. Jake watched as dozens of human warships dropped out of hyperspace. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, all of them flying Earth's flag. At the center was a massive battleship that could only be one vessel. This is Admiral Patricia Cole of the Earth battleship Valiant Dawn. A voice came through the comm system. Strong and clear. All Krell forces, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. You have entered a combat zone with Earth military forces. Leave now or face total destruction. Jake felt his legs go weak with relief. She came. Admiral Cole had received his message and mobilized the entire fleet. Help had arrived. The Krell fleet did not need to be told twice. They had fought one human ship and lost 4 of their own. Now an entire fleet faced them. The Krell began to retreat, jumping into hyperspace one by one until the sky was clear. Horizon's Edge, this is Admiral Cole. Good work, Captain Morrison. Now let's go save some aliens. The Horizon's Edge limped toward the Valiant Dawn, trailing sparks and venting atmosphere from the damaged sections. Jake stood on the bridge watching the massive battleship grow larger on his view screen. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, bristling with weapons and armor plating. This was what humanity built when they needed to fight wars among the stars. Admiral Cole wants to see you in person, Sophie said, reading a message from the flagship. She's sending a shuttle to pick you up. Jake nodded. His legs felt shaky now that the adrenaline was wearing off. They had actually survived. They had fought an entire alien fleet and lived to tell about it. You have the bridge, Sophie. Get those hull breaches fixed. Make sure everyone injured gets to medical. Aye, Captain, Sophie replied. She was sporting a nasty bruise on her forehead but refused to leave her station. 20 minutes later, Jake stepped off the shuttle and into the hangar bay of the Valiant Dawn. The place was chaos. Marines were loading weapons and gear. Pilots ran toward their fighters. Medical teams prepared emergency supplies. Everyone moved with purpose and discipline. This was a military operation now. A young officer met him and led him through the corridors to the bridge. When the doors opened, Jake saw Admiral Patricia Cole standing at the Central Command Station. She was in her 50s with gray hair cut short and sharp eyes that missed nothing. 3 scars ran down the left side of her face from an explosion during the Mars Rebellion. She wore them like medals. Captain Morrison, she said without looking up from her tactical display. That was either the bravest or the stupidest thing I've seen in 30 years of service. I haven't decided which yet. Permission to speak freely, Admiral? Granted. I couldn't just watch them die, Jake said simply. Cole finally looked at him. Her expression softened just a little. I know. That's why I brought every ship I could muster. We don't leave people behind, not humans and apparently not aliens either. She gestured to the display showing the 3 Viren planets. But we have a problem. The Krell will be back with reinforcements. We need to establish contact with the Virens and set up defenses. Fast. My linguist, Dr. Amy Sullivan, has already translated their language. Jake offered. We can communicate with them. Good. Take a team down to the surface. Make first contact. Let them know help has arrived. Cole's expression hardened. But Morrison, you need to understand something. These people have never fought a war. They don't understand violence. What they saw today, what we did to those Krell ships, might terrify them as much as the enemy does. Jake had not thought about that. Humans were used to war. They grew up with it in their history books, in their entertainment, in their very DNA. But a species that had never known violence, how would they react to humanity's brutal methods? "I'll be careful," Jake promised. An hour later, a landing shuttle descended through the atmosphere of the planet called Crystallis Prime. Jake sat beside Amy, who clutched her translation computer nervously. Across from them sat Marcus and 4 Marines in full combat gear just in case. Through the window, Jake could see the planet below. It was beautiful. The oceans were a light purple color. The continents were covered in what looked like forests made of crystal that caught the sunlight and broke it into rainbows. Cities gleamed like jewels scattered across the landscape, but he could also see the damage. Entire sections of cities were reduced to rubble. Fires still burned in some places. The scars of war marked this paradise. The shuttle landed in what appeared to be a central plaza. The buildings around them were tall and translucent, made of some kind of crystalline material that seemed to grow rather than be built. As the landing ramp lowered, Jake saw them. The Varens. They were unlike anything he had imagined. Each one stood about 6 feet tall, their bodies made of living crystal that shifted through different colors. They had a vaguely humanoid shape with 2 arms and 2 legs, but their faces were smooth with eyes that glowed from within. When they moved, they made a soft chiming sound like wind through glass. A group of Varens approached slowly. They moved with grace but also fear. Jake could see them trembling. At the front was one whose crystal body glowed with a soft blue light, brighter than the others. Beside her walked what looked like guards, though they carried no weapons. They probably did not even know what weapons were until recently. Jake stepped forward and stopped a respectful distance away. Amy held up her translation device and spoke. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We received your distress call. We came to help." The device converted her words into the musical tones of the Varen language. The blue Varen listened and her glow brightened slightly. When she spoke, her voice was like crystal bells ringing. The translator converted it to words Jake could understand. "I am Elder Saris of the Varen Council. You are the ones who attacked the Krell fleet?" There was something in her tone. Not quite fear, but uncertainty. "Yes," Jake said honestly. "We drove them away. More of our people are in orbit right now, setting up defenses to protect your worlds." "We saw the battle," Saris said slowly. "We saw you destroy their ships. We saw the explosions and the fire. We have never seen anything like it. We did not know such violence was possible." Jake felt a pang in his chest. Of course they had never seen it. They came from a world without predators, without war, without the constant struggle for survival that defined Earth. To them, what humans did was probably monstrous. "I know it must seem terrible," Jake said carefully. "Violence is terrible. War is terrible. But the Krell were killing your people. We had to stop them." Sarah stepped closer. Her crystalline hand reached out hesitantly and touched Jake's hand. Her touch was cool and smooth like glass. "You came from across the stars to save us. Strangers you have never met, why?" Jake thought about how to explain it. How could he make her understand humanity's history, all the wars and struggles, all the times they had failed each other and all the times they had succeeded, how they had learned slowly and painfully that the only way to survive was to protect each other. "Because where we come from," Jake said slowly, "the world tried to kill us every day. Storms, predators, diseases, even the ground beneath our feet could open up and swallow cities. We survived because we learned to help each other, to stand together against the darkness. And when we heard your call for help, we could not ignore it." Amy continued translating, and Jake saw other Varens gathering around to listen, hundreds of them now, all with their internal lights pulsing with various colors. He realized the colors were emotions, blue for sadness, red for fear. But he also saw some turning green, which he hoped meant hope. "Your world sounds frightening," Saris said. "How did you become so strong?" "We had no choice," Marcus spoke up from behind Jake. "Our world did not give us peace. It gave us challenges, and we learned to overcome them." Saris looked at all the humans, studying them carefully. "You are warriors, fighters, everything we are not." "We are survivors," Jake corrected gently. "And right now you need survivors to help you become survivors too." Elder Saris was quiet for a long moment. The chiming sound of her body changed pitch, like she was thinking or feeling something deep. Finally she spoke again. The Krell commander sent us a message before he fled. He said more ships are coming. A much larger fleet. He said they will turn our worlds to dust and there is nothing anyone can do to stop them. Let them come. Jake said with confidence he hoped he felt. We will be ready. But you have already fought. Your ship was damaged. Your people were hurt. Why would you stay and fight again? Because that is what humans do. Jake looked around at the destroyed city, at the frightened Varens, at the beauty that the Krell wanted to erase. We stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. Always. Saris's glow shifted to a warm gold color. I do not understand your people. You come from a harsh world. You know violence and war. Yet you cross the stars to protect strangers. This does not match what we thought we knew about survival. We believed survival meant avoiding conflict. On our world, Amy said softly, survival meant facing conflict head-on, not running from it but standing against it together. Elder Saris turned to the gathered Varens and spoke in their musical language. The sounds rose and fell like a symphony. When she finished, she turned back to Jake. Our people wish to learn from you. Not just how to fight, though we see now we must learn this, but how to be strong like you are. How to face fear and not break. We can teach you, Jake promised. Admiral Cole has people who can help set up defenses. We can show you how to protect yourselves. And what do you ask in return? Saris asked. Surely you want something. The Krell came promising protection if we served them. They lied. How do we know you are different? Jake understood her fear. Trust was hard when your world was burning. We do not want servants or payment. When this is over, if you want us to leave, we will leave. But until then, let us help you survive. Saris touched Jake's hand again. This time her touch was warmer, more confident. Then we accept your help, humans from Earth. Teach us how to stand against the darkness. Jake felt relief wash over him. They had made contact. The Varens trusted them enough to accept help. It was a start. He activated his communicator and spoke to Admiral Cole in orbit. Admiral, first contact is successful. 3 weeks passed like a blur. The peaceful paradise of Crystallis Prime transformed into something else. Shield generators rose from the ground around every major city, their humming energy fields creating protective domes. Weapons platforms orbited the planet, watching the stars for any sign of the enemy. The Varens worked alongside humans, learning quickly despite their fear. Jake stood in what used to be a meditation garden, now converted into a command center. Holographic displays showed the defensive positions across all 3 Varen planets. Sophie worked beside him, coordinating with the fleet in orbit. Marcus had barely slept in days, working with Varen engineers to combine their technology with human weapon systems. They are making incredible progress, Marcus said, wiping sweat from his forehead. The Varens understand energy in ways we never thought possible. They have helped us boost our shield strength by 40%. Will it be enough? Jake asked quietly. Marcus did not answer right away. He looked tired and worried. I don't know. The scouts say the Krell are bringing over 200 ships this time. We have 38. Even with the improved defenses, the numbers are not in our favor. Jake knew he was right. Admiral Cole had called every available ship from nearby sectors, but Earth's fleet was spread thin across their own territories. This was all they had. 38 ships against an armada. He tried not to think about the odds. A young Viren named Talus approached them. Over the past weeks, he had become something like a liaison between the humans and his people. His crystal body glowed with determined orange light. Captain Morrison, Elder Saris wishes to speak with you. It is urgent. Jake followed Talus through the garden to where Saris waited. The Elder looked different now. Her blue glow had darkened, becoming almost navy. Jake had learned that meant she was afraid but trying to be brave. The Krell commander sent another message, Saris said without greeting. He calls himself War Commander Thexus. He has conquered 47 worlds. He says we have one chance to surrender. If we do, he will let some of our people live as slaves. If we refuse, he will destroy every Varen in existence. What did you tell him? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. I told him we have friends now. Friends who do not abandon those who need help. Saris's color brightened slightly. He laughed. He said humans are insects who will be crushed along with us. Then he promised to hunt down Earth itself and burn it. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. Threatening the Varens was one thing. Threatening Earth was another. He can try. Plenty have threatened Earth over the centuries. Our planet is still there. I am frightened, Saris admitted. Not just for my people, but for yours too. You came to help us, and now you may die because of it. Is this fair? Fair has nothing to do with it, Jake said gently. This is about doing what is right. Saris reached out and touched his shoulder. It was a gesture of trust that Jake had learned meant a lot to the Virans. Your species is very strange, Jake Morrison, but I am glad you exist. Before Jake could respond, alarms screamed across the command center. Sophie's voice came through his communicator, urgent and sharp. Captain, they are here. Krell fleet just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Count is 214 ships. Jake ran back to the command center with Saris following. The holographic display showed the Krell armada spreading out like a dark cloud. 214 warships, each one designed for destruction. Against them stood the human fleet and whatever defenses they had managed to build in 3 weeks. All hands to battle stations. Admiral Cole's voice boomed across every communication channel. This is not a drill. Krell fleet is inbound. They outnumber us 6 to 1. I will not lie to you. This will be the hardest fight any of us have ever faced. But remember why we are here. Remember who we are protecting. We are the wall between innocent people and annihilation. We are Earth's finest. We do not break. We do not run. We stand and fight. Jake felt pride surge through him despite the fear. This was humanity at its best. Outnumbered and outgunned, but refusing to back down. The Krell fleet moved forward slowly, confidently. They knew they had won before the battle even started. War Commander Thexus broadcasted on all frequencies. His face appeared on every screen, his gray skin pulled back in what might have been a smile. Humans, he said, his voice full of contempt. You have made a grave mistake. You interfered in Krell business. Now you will learn what happens to those who defy us. We will destroy your fleet. We will destroy the Virans, and then we will find your precious Earth and teach your species the price of arrogance. Admiral Cole's response was simple and cold. Come and try. The Krell fleet surged forward. Space lit up with weapons fire. Energy beams lanced across the darkness. Missiles streaked toward their targets. The human fleet met them head-on, refusing to give ground. Jake watched from the surface as the battle unfolded in orbit above them. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers against the black sky. He could see the human ships dodging and weaving, their smaller size and better engines giving them an advantage in mobility. But the Krell had numbers and firepower. They are breaking through the orbital defenses, Sophie reported, her voice tense. 3 Krell destroyers are heading toward the surface. They are targeting the capital city. Activate the shield, Jake ordered. The massive shield generator that Marcus had built with the Virans hummed to life. A dome of pure energy spread over the city, shimmering like a soap bubble. The Krell destroyers opened fire. Energy beams hit the shield and scattered harmlessly. The city below remained safe. But Jake knew the shield could not hold forever. It was draining power fast. How long can we maintain it? 20 minutes at this intensity, Marcus answered. Maybe 30 if we are lucky. 20 minutes. Jake's mind raced. They needed to take out those destroyers before the shield failed. But the fleet was engaged with the main Krell force. There was no one to help them. Then an idea hit him. A crazy, desperate idea. Marcus, can we reverse the polarity on the shield generator? Marcus looked at him like he had lost his mind. Theoretically, yes, but that would turn it from a defensive shield into an energy weapon, a massive one. It would probably destroy the generator and anything within a kilometer of it, including those Krell ships if they are close enough. Understanding dawned on Marcus's face. You want to use it as a trap? Exactly. Drop the shield. Let them think we are defenseless. When they get close to attack the city, hit them with everything the generator has. That is insane, Sophie said, but she was already working on her console. I love it. Jake opened a channel to the Viran shelters. All civilians, this is Captain Morrison. The shield is coming down for a tactical reason. Do not panic. Stay in the shelters. This will be over soon. He hoped he was telling the truth. The shield flickered and died. The Krell destroyers must have thought they had drained it. They accelerated toward the city, weapons charging for the killing blow. They came closer and closer, entering the atmosphere with trails of fire. Wait for it, Jake said, watching the tactical display. Wait, the destroyers dove toward the city. The Virans in the shelters huddled together in fear. The Krell prepared to fire. Now, Jake shouted. Marcus slammed his hand down on the controls. The shield generator reversed polarity and released every bit of stored energy in one massive pulse. The wave of pure force exploded outward like an invisible hammer. It hit the 3 Krell destroyers and crushed them like tin cans. The ships crumpled and fell from the sky in pieces, burning as they crashed into empty fields outside the city. The Varens cheered, their musical voices rising in celebration. But Jake knew the battle was not over. In orbit, the fleet was still fighting desperately. Then Sophie gasped. "Captain Admiral Cole is hailing. She says she has a plan, but it is risky." Jake activated the communication. Cole's face appeared, covered in soot and blood from a console explosion. Behind her, the bridge of the Valiant Dawn was on fire. "Morrison, we are loading 3 ships with antimatter warheads," she said quickly. "Weapons that Earth banned decades ago because they are too destructive. I'm going to bluff. Make the Krell think we will use them. Maybe they will back down." "And if they call your bluff?" Jake asked. Cole smiled grimly. "Then we actually use them and pray we do not destroy ourselves in the process." It was insane. Antimatter weapons could tear apart entire fleets, but they were unstable and dangerous. Using them was a gamble that could backfire catastrophically. But what choice did they have? "Do it," Jake said. Admiral Cole broadcast on all frequencies. "Krell forces, this is your final warning. You have 10 minutes to withdraw from Varen space. We have loaded antimatter weapons. If you do not leave, we will detonate them in the center of your fleet. You will all die." The battle paused. For a moment, space was silent except for the drifting wreckage and the dying fires. Jake held his breath. Then War Commander Thexus responded. "You are bluffing. No species would use such weapons. The risk is too great. We are humans," Cole said simply. "We have destroyed ourselves a dozen times throughout our history and rebuilt each time. We know how to make terrible choices when necessary. This is your last chance. Leave or die." 3 human ships accelerated toward the center of the Krell formation. Their hulls showed massive warheads attached to their sides. The sky above Crystalis Prime was finally peaceful. No weapons fire. No explosions. Just stars twinkling in the darkness like they had for billions of years before this war started. Jake stood on the balcony of the Crystal Tower where Elder Saris lived, looking up at those stars and thinking about everything that had happened. 3 days had passed since the battle. 3 days of cleaning up wreckage, treating the wounded, and counting the cost. The human fleet had lost 8 ships. 217 crew members had died defending a species they had never met before. Their names would be remembered on Earth forever. But they had saved the Varens. All 8 billion of them across the 3 planets were alive because humanity had answered their call for help. "You look tired," Sarah said, stepping onto the balcony beside him. Her crystal body glowed with soft purple light. Jake had learned that purple meant peaceful contentment. "I am tired," Jake admitted. "But it is a good kind of tired. The kind you feel when you have done something that matters." Saris touched his arm gently. Over the past weeks, the Varens had become more comfortable with physical contact around humans. "We studied your planet while you were helping us. We accessed your historical databases. We learned about Earth." "And what did you learn?" Jake asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. "That your world is terrifying," Saris said honestly. "Your storms can destroy entire cities. Your oceans have creatures that hunt in packs. Your very ground shakes and splits open. Even your smallest organisms fight constantly to survive. We cannot imagine living in such a place." Jake nodded slowly. It was true. Earth was a harsh world, a planet that tested every species that evolved there. "It made us strong," he said. "But it also made us understand something important." "What is that?" "That survival is not about being the strongest or the fastest. It is about helping each other. About protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Our world tried to kill us for millions of years, but we survived because we stood together." Saris was quiet for a moment, processing his words. "And now you stand with us, strangers from across the void." "Not strangers anymore," Jake corrected with a smile. "Friends." The word seemed to resonate with Saris. Her glow brightened. "Yes, friends. We have decided something, my people and I. We wish to form an alliance with humanity. We will share our technology with you. Our knowledge of energy manipulation, gravity control, and material science. In return, you will teach us how to defend ourselves. How to be strong like you." "You are already strong," Jake said. "You survived the Krell attacks. You adapted faster than anyone expected. You learned to stand when your entire world was burning." "Because we had you to show us how," Saris replied. "Jake Morrison, you and your people are the first warriors we have ever met. You know violence and conflict in ways we never imagined, but you also know compassion and sacrifice. You risked everything to save us. We will never forget this. Jake felt emotion swell in his chest. This was what made it all worth it. Not the victory, not the glory, but knowing they had made a real difference. Neither will we. Admiral Cole arrived the next day on a shuttle from the Valiant Dawn. She walked with a slight limp from an injury during the battle, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. She met with the Viren Council in their great hall, a massive chamber where light refracted through crystal walls in every color imaginable. On behalf of Earth and humanity, Cole said formally, I accept your offer of alliance. Together we will be stronger than either of us could be alone. Elder Saris stepped forward. We have already begun working on combined technologies. Your engineer Marcus Hayes and our scientists have created shield generators twice as powerful as anything either species had before. We believe this is just the beginning. Cole nodded, clearly impressed. The galaxy is watching what happened here. Word is spreading fast. Other species have started reaching out to Earth, asking questions about who we are and what we stand for. What do you tell them? Saris asked. The truth. That we are a young species from a harsh world. That we believe in protecting the innocent. That when someone cries for help, we answer. Cole paused. Some are afraid of us. They hear about the battle, about how we fight, and they think we are dangerous. You are dangerous, Saris said simply. But you are dangerous to those who would harm others. To us, you are saviors. Over the following weeks, more changes came. Human engineers worked with Viren scientists to rebuild the damaged cities, incorporating defensive systems into the beautiful crystal structures. Training programs began teaching Viren's basic combat tactics and defensive strategies, though it was difficult for them to overcome millions of years of peaceful evolution. Sophie Bennett led a group training session in a converted garden. A dozen Virens stood before her, their crystal bodies flickering with nervous yellow light. She was teaching them how to operate defensive turrets. Remember, Sophie said patiently, you are not trying to kill, you are trying to protect. These weapons are tools to keep your people safe. There is no shame in defending what you love. A young Viren raised a crystalline hand. But what if we hurt someone? What if we become like the Krell? Sophie's expression softened. The difference between you and the Krell is simple. They hurt others to take what they want. You would only fight to protect what is yours. That difference matters. It matters more than anything. The Viren seemed to understand. Their lights shifted from yellow to orange, the color of determination. Meanwhile, Marcus worked in a laboratory with Viren engineers on a new project. They were designing a communication network that could reach across the galaxy, instantly using Viren harmonic technology, combined with human quantum processors. If we can get this working, Marcus explained to Jake during a visit, any species in distress can call for help and someone will hear them. No more waiting weeks for a message to travel through space. Instant communication across light years. The Krell will not like that, Jake observed. Good, Marcus said with a grin. Let them try to conquer worlds when everyone can call for help instantly. Let them face the consequences of their actions. Dr. Amy Sullivan made her own breakthrough. Working with Viren linguists, she created a universal translation matrix that could learn and translate any language it encountered. It would make first contact with new species much easier and safer. This is incredible, Amy, Jake said, looking at her work. You have given us a way to talk to anyone in the galaxy. That is the point, Amy replied. The Krell succeeded because species were isolated, alone, unable to call for help or warn each other. But if everyone can communicate, if everyone can reach out, then no one has to face threats alone. 6 weeks after the battle, Jake stood once more in the central plaza where he had first met the Virens. But it looked different now. The crystal buildings had been repaired and reinforced. Shield generators hummed quietly at the city's edge. Defense platforms orbited overhead. The paradise had learned to protect itself without losing its beauty. A ceremony was taking place. Humans and Virens gathered together as Admiral Cole prepared to leave with most of the fleet. A garrison would remain, but Earth needed its ships elsewhere. Other species were asking for help now. Other distress calls needed answers. Elder Saris spoke to the gathered crowd, her voice amplified so everyone could hear. Today we say goodbye to some of our friends, but not farewell. The bonds we have formed will last forever. Humanity came when we cried for help. They stood between us and destruction. They showed us that strength without compassion is meaningless, but compassion backed by strength can change the galaxy. Admiral Cole stepped forward. The Krell will tell stories about what happened here. They will call us Deathworlders, monsters, demons, let them. Because now every species in the galaxy will also know that when someone cries SOS, humans come with a fleet, not to conquer, not to dominate, but to protect. The crowd erupted in celebration. Varan chimes mixed with human cheers and a sound that was chaotic but beautiful. Two species, impossibly different, united by a simple truth, that helping others was never wrong. That standing against darkness was always right. Jake found Sophie and Marcus in the crowd. They had been through hell together and come out the other side. They had fought impossible odds and won, not because they were the strongest or the most advanced, but because they refused to give up. Think the Krell will come back? Sophie asked. Maybe, Jake said. But if they do, they will find something they did not expect. What's that? Marcus wanted to know. Jake smiled and gestured at the Varans and humans working together, laughing together, rebuilding together. They will find that the galaxy is not as easy to conquer as it used to be. They will find that species are standing together now. They will find that Deathworlders make really good friends. As the Valiant Dawn and most of the fleet prepared to depart, Jake received a message from Earth. More distress calls had been intercepted. Other species needed help. The Galactic Defense Coalition, as they were calling it now, was receiving requests from across known space. Looks like we are not done yet, Jake said to his crew aboard the Horizon's Edge, which had been fully repaired. Good, Sophie replied from her station. I was getting bored anyway. Marcus laughed from engineering. Bored? We nearly died like 5 times. Exactly, Sophie said with a grin. Boring.